This week on Full Circle Florida, the final hours, the presidential race down to the wire, the critical states and the critical counties in those states that could decide the White House, the gender gap and the power of the female vote, what the early numbers are revealing, men breaking for Trump, women breaking for Harris, and which candidate could have more to lose. And the governor's war on four, DeSantis spending state money and resources, telling Floridians how to vote on abortion and marijuana. Meanwhile, homeowners are still digging out from Hurricanes Helene and Milton and wondering if they can save their homes. So why is the governor making politics the top priority? We debate, we discuss. We are counting down to the final hours on this show before the election. We've got a full panel here with us this week. He is the host of the Ryan Gorman Show on News Radio WFLA. Ryan Gorman back with us. And she is the publisher of Southeast Politics, Janelle Irwin Taylor, here with us this week. And of course, our trusted voice of reason, political analyst, Dr. Susan MacManus, who actually just published some research on the gender gap among voters and what it means for this election. We'll get into that a little bit later because it's really interesting. But I want to start with the biggest political news of the week here in Florida. You've no doubt seen the ads, the governor's campaign against the abortion amendment, the marijuana amendment. Politico reporting this week, and I just want to quote what they reported. The flurry of actions has generated litigation, a rebuke from a federal judge, assertions from state officials that laws may be broken, designed to prevent the use of state resources to influence an election. They went on to say DeSantis himself signed a law 2 years ago that blocks local governments from sending out any kind of communications on local referendums. The article also quoted State Senator Joe Gruters, a Sarasota Republican, former chair of the Republican Party of Florida. He said, no matter where you stand on an issue, this is still a democracy, and in a democracy, we do not spend taxpayer dollars in advance of a political issue. Tax dollars, he said, are meant to be spent on police, schools, roads, other public programs that make our state great, not for political agendas. Open this up to the panel. Thoughts on that?
This certainly isn't the first time that Joe Gruters and Ron DeSantis have been at odds with one another. Yeah. And on the Amendment 3 issue in particular, Ron DeSantis and most of the GOP is against it, but Joe Gruters was one of the first in the GOP to come out for it. So obviously he's going to take some issue. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, I don't think it's really going to matter all that much. He's a lame duck governor, if you will. So
does the governor? Do people need the governor to tell them how to vote? I mean, how effective is this?
I think it's been pretty effective in making this a really tight race here towards the end with these two amendments. I don't have a problem with the governor or the first lady going out and campaigning for or against it. The problem is when you're trying to put out public service announcements that are really ads meant to impact the vote for those two amendments, and when you're using state officials at the events that you're going to, who should really be staying out of the politics of all of this.
The whole administration is involved in this, Susan. It's not just the governor. It seems like it's all hands on deck against these two amendments.
Yes, but the bottom line is, do you not expect a governor to call attention to particular issues? They're elected to do that. His argument, agree with it or not, is about the health care impacts. Health care is a big policy area.
Is it unprecedented? Have we seen? I don't recall seeing this before from Bob Martinez or Graham or Scott or.
I think the way he's using the money is definitely different.
Is it
in
different?
terms of taking PSAs and you're making it like they're really not about the amendment, but they're literally focused on the issues at hand with the amendment. And we're talking millions of dollars, millions of taxpayer dollars.
Meanwhile, people are digging out of debris, back-to-back hurricanes. And I'm just wondering, is there anyone close to the governor saying, why don't you do events that concentrate on that? I mean, if not just for the optics, pick up a shovel, where's the creative thinking when it comes to solving that problem? I mean, marshaling perhaps the National Guard to do a massive debris cleanup. And we've seen him, be creative before when it comes to, going to other states, rounding up migrants, sending them to other states. I mean, he has this way of out-of-box thinking that generates headlines. Why not generate headlines that actually help people that are hurting right now? We do these stories every night. People are in a bad place after these hurricanes.
There might be some people kind of gingerly suggesting that he do some of those things. But this is not an administration where dissent among the ranks is taken kindly to. So I find it hard to believe that anybody in the DeSantis inner circle, with the exception of maybe Casey, is able to have those conversations with him safely without feeling that they're somehow in peril.
Yeah,
But let's also think about the role of FEMA. Look at the city of Tampa.
Right.
They can't get reimbursed. The federal government's going to pay for reimbursement. The FEMA's setting the rules as to how quickly you've got to do things. So you've got a federal intervention in this as well, and big stakes money that's far more than what the state could give in some of this kind of thing.
But maybe even more of a reason to highlight, okay, FEMA, help us out more, or can we figure out a way in the state to do more for people that are hurting?
They can also walk and chew gum at the same time.
Right. I also think you've got the governor facing two major issues. One of them, Amendment 3, he's on the opposite side of former President Donald Trump on. So the stakes politically, in terms of the outcomes of these two amendments, could be pretty important for him moving forward.
He's on the opposite side of Trump on Amendment 4, too. Trump has come out and said that he's probably going to vote in favor of it.
Well, he's kind of been all over the place.
Yeah, he's been all over
right?
the place.
It's been hard to nail that one down. This condo crisis, they passed this bill. It was one bad building in Miami, tragic situation, but they passed this sweeping new law that now puts all this added burden, pressure, costs on top of the insurance going through the roof on condo owners who don't just live in South Florida, they're all over the state. And the governor who signed the law admits this thing had unintended consequences and they need to fix it. And again, this is a real problem playing out in real time. Why not more attention paid to that?
I guarantee you this legislative session coming up, this will be at the top of the list because every one of these legislators has been bombarded by constituents about fixing some of this. It's also true that some of these things can't be fixed instantaneously. I heard a very good presentation by the CFO this week that talked about the fact that, some people are against building codes, but the buildings that survived the terrible storms were those that were built recently with tougher standards compared to the older homes which were not.
And that's a conversation we've got to have going forward when it comes to how we rebuild this state in the wake of reality that we're probably going to get whacked, I hate to say it, by a hurricane every year. Growing up here, that was not always the case. Next on Full Circle Florida, the final hours, the final push, and what the final numbers reveal.